Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to episode 353 of the Falcoholic Live. I'm your host, Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin, joined by my co-host, Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way. We are here once again to bring you everything we know about the NFL trade deadline involving the Atlanta Falcons, which unfortunately is nothing. So that, wonderful midseason, news dump that a lot of teams get to enjoy this year. Falcons decided to sit that one out, Adnan. So instead, we're here to not talk about the trade deadline, or maybe we could talk about the lack of moves because that's also newsworthy. But how are you holding up, Adnan? Now going into week 10, we've officially crossed the midpoint of the season. So,
man, it's been a long season. I mean, it isn't every season's really long, but yeah, I wasn't expecting. I mean, I was optimistic over the summer, and then less optimistic right before the season started. Where I think I said, okay, this team may wind up winning like 8 games, and that got some tomatoes thrown at me a little bit. But 3-5, it's still disappointing. 3-5 with a big, difficult game against the Colts coming up, and I did not figure that this team would be a major player at the trade deadline. I feel like they sort of gave that right away during the draft last year. They are down a first rounder, and they're down a fifth rounder. So I mean, you sort of forfeit the right to make any win now moves, but also, is this team really in a position to be making any win now moves? Like either way, 3-5. Like I feel like I'm more disappointed that they possibly didn't go the other way.
yeah.
Where I'm more disappointed that they didn't, you know, trade some of these guys away, some of these veteran players, because it looked like it was a pretty good sellers market. Like there were some eye-opening trades that were made during the deadline, and there was some really really good value extracted by some of these teams that were sellers. I mean, Sauce Gardner was the big name. I feel like the Jets got a bit of a treasure chest with that one, with 2 first rounders and added AD Mitchell. I mean, Rashid Shaheed got a fourth and a fifth. Like, that one was the one where I was like, damn, like, that was pretty rich. But, instead the Falcons have sat here and done nothing.
Yeah.
So here
Yeah.
we are.
No, I'm very much on the same page with you about that, where I thought at this point the team should absolutely be sellers and moving on from these contract year players. And that's probably where we're going to start today's conversation, folks. Thanks again for tuning in to the Falcoholic Live presented by FanDuel. Once again, thank you, folks. Yeah, what's up, Solaire? Welcome. Happy to have you in for the live for once. I know sometimes we see you at the end of the show. I know you usually drop something about like, oh, when are the draft takes coming? Well, draft takes might be coming sooner rather than later, given the trajectory of the season at this point. But unfortunately, no additional draft picks to consider in draft takes because, as Adnan said, Falcons weren't sellers and they weren't buyers. And the lack of buying, to me, makes total sense because you're already down a first-round pick and a fifth-round pick. You're not really in a situation at 3-5 where you're like trying to go all in or anything like that. If this team was like 6-2 or something like that instead, then maybe you could see them like, oh, we need to go. Maybe they would have been a player for someone like a Jacoby Myers because they're trying to kind of push their chips in and get that last piece. But instead, they're 3-5. So I think at this point, given the state of the NFC, which is really strong this year, 10 wins is probably the minimum. And given tie-breaking situations, it might be 11 that you need to get past the 49ers. So, it's not looking very good playoff-wise. 7-2 is what you have to do. Like, it's not looking good, Adnan. I already said, I'm talking about firing Raheem Morris and moving on. So I don't believe that they will go 7-2 for the record. I'm just telling people that's what they'd have to do at this point. And given what we've seen, like, is this team talented enough to have won 10 games? Yes, but like they needed to do better at this point because they ended up winning some games that I don't think we were expecting them to win. That they came away with that Vikings win on the road in week 2. They came away with that Bills win. Those were 2 games that should have put them in the plus column, but instead they blew 2 games. Obviously the Dolphins one reigned supreme as the most embarrassing loss you could possibly have, because that team went right back to being dog shit the second they stopped playing the Falcons. The Panthers one is like a little bit more forgivable because the Panthers actually look like the defense in particular is a lot better than people expected. I'm not going to say anything nice about Bryce Young because I know that will trigger Adnan. So we're not doing that. We're full. This is a fully anti-Bryce Young program. So, we're not going to do anything there. And it's not like Bryce Young's been the catalyst of their success either. Let's be honest. So, it's been Rico Dowdle and the defense. So, but 3-5, this team is almost out of it. They need, if they win against the Colts and they need to go 6-2, it's like, okay, like there's probably like a 10% chance of that happening. But if they lose against the Colts and they have to go 7-1, there's a 0% chance of that happening. There's absolutely no way they're only losing one game the rest of the way. I think, the odds on that would be so astronomical. They wouldn't even offer that at that point. So, and so I figured like there's not going to be some sort of, fire sale, but I thought there would be for 3 players in particular. Kirk Cousins, obviously, I would have done anything to move that contract, like to move him, including eating everything this year, like taking his contract down to the minimum, and just offloading him for any sort of day 3 pick, just to not have to deal with that next year, not have to deal with any of that nonsense. I think the Falcons screwed that up, obviously, by asking for too much for Kirk Cousins. I think they could have moved him earlier this offseason or like during the season if they were willing to come down for what sounded like an astronomical price. And then, of course, Kirk Cousins goes out in his opportunity and just stinks it up. And, so.
I think we can finally close the book on if it was the right move or not to not cut Kirk Cousins at the beginning or before his $10 million hit, or before his $10 million guarantee hit for next season. I remember I was saying just move on from him, cut him, and just like save the $10 million next year. But instead it was all right. Well, let's just see what they can do with him. Let's see if they can move him for something. If they can maybe get a day 2 pick at some point. If someone's going to be desperate enough, and then it turns out Cousins has nothing left in the tank, and it turns out that they overplayed their hand and just made another in what's been a comedy of errors for this regime. I mean, I don't know.
Throw it on the pile. Yeah, just throw it on the pile. Yeah,
another one.
I still think like if it was me, like I keep him and I trade him, and I don't care what pick I get or what happens. I just make it a point like I'm trading this guy, and I think they just screwed it up. Like I still think holding him and trading him was the best move. I think they just stuck to their guns about this astronomical price for Kirk Cousins when we knew the contract was an albatross, that it was unlikely that he was going to be the first choice for anyone because of how expensive he was. They apparently weren't willing to eat any money, and they wanted a high pick. It's like you have no one to blame but yourself for the failure to trade him. Like I still think he was tradable. I think a determined GM, and this is a negative mark I think on Fontenot and this staff, is like you could have traded him. I still think you could have. And I think they just failed to meet the moment, basically, and get this done when there were opportunities to do so by lowering their price. And, it's unfortunate because I think he could have netted you something and, again, saved you the money next year. Now, there's still a chance to get out of next year's money. The way that it works is if somebody else signs Cousins next year, whatever he makes offsets the roster bonus in terms of cap space, which is kind of an interesting wrinkle. So like if he signs as a backup somewhere for like $5 million, they could get a little bit of that back. But at this point, I mean,
but here's the issue with that. Kirk Cousins knows this. Kirk Cousins knows he's making $10 million no matter what. Unless a team is going to give him more than $10 million, which I'd be hard pressed to imagine. I don't know why Cousins wouldn't just sign for the minimum anywhere, help his new team out, and then still get the $10 million at the expense of the Falcons. That's pretty much what Russell Wilson did after he left Denver. He was guaranteed, $37 million. He signed for the minimum in, I think it was it Pittsburgh last year? It was Pittsburgh. So it's like the Cousins has no reason to go and sign a $7-8 million contract because all that'll do is help the Falcons.
Well, he gets the money too. I mean,
Yeah, I
he
mean,
still gets the money, but yeah,
no matter what.
I mean, like he gets the 10 million. It's really just a cap space maneuvering thing. Like he still gets the 10 million no matter
No, I
what
mean
he signs
he's
for.
making
But
the $10 million like no matter what next year.
yeah,
Like it's
yeah.
guaranteed for him.
But I don't think there's any incentive for him to take less money necessarily. But it depends on his market and various other things. So like if he doesn't have much of a market, I could see him absolutely taking minimum to sign like wherever he wants if that's the kicker. But it'll be fascinating to see how that plays out because I think you brought up some good points about that. Like because he is getting money, he doesn't necessarily have to push for as big of a contract as he normally would have. So we'll see. And obviously, if he retires, he doesn't get the money either. So
He's not retiring.
yeah, he's not going to do that.
He's not leaving $10 million. That's not
No,
what
exactly. So I it's like same thing with Matt Ryan. Like respect to Matt Ryan for sticking it out another year and getting all of his guarantees as well. So, but yeah, I think they totally bungled that situation, and just yeah, it's a real shame because I feel like they could have easily moved that contract if they wanted to, and I think they just overplayed their hand and really thought they could get more, and I think it pretty clearly, like especially after he played and looked terrible, it was like you just need to do whatever it takes to move him, like take a seventh and eat the money just to get him out of here, and they didn't seem willing to do that. And I think that extends to the other things. Like it sounds to me like there was a deal in place for Arnold Ebiketie to go elsewhere. I don't know where. I don't know what the compensation was, but it seems like the team that probably was going to trade for Ebiketie got a cheaper option elsewhere, and the Falcons weren't willing to lower their price to accommodate it, and so therefore they're stuck with Ebiketie and no pick. And like I don't mind having Ebiketie around. That's not an issue. It's just you're going to get nothing for him now. Like so again, it's like I think the situation where you don't have a strong hand. Everybody knows you're 3-5 and a seller at this point, and you just don't. You're not willing to buck off of your high asking price to get a deal done. And Ebiketie's obviously upset about it. We saw the since deleted tweet. So like it sounds like it was pretty close to being a done deal, and they weren't able to get it across the finish line. So
also the other thing is I may assume some malice here in Terry Fontenot could absolutely be on the hot seat right now. And I don't see, and this is one of the issues with having, a GM on the hot seat. Why would he move any of these guys and help the next GM out, like in a sense? Because I feel like if you buy or sell off all of these players, the team, is definitely not going to be able to compete for sure, or it's going to be much less likely that they compete. In which case, if I'm sitting in Terry Fontenot's shoes, I'm not looking to, be a seller either. And I'm absolutely looking, at these astronomical prices, hoping the teams don't meet them.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the other ones I would have really tried to move Tyler Algier too. There definitely are running back needy teams out there. I'm surprised I'm not surprised they didn't get it done because they do view him as such an integral piece here, and he is, but they're just not good enough for it to matter personally. Algier's the closer, and you're never really having a chance to close now because you're playing so poorly. So like
also with Algier, like don't get me wrong, we all like Tyler Algier. How many funds are you really going to allocate to the running back position? Are you really going to re-sign Algier to a long-term contract, knowing that Bijan Robinson is going to possibly be the highest-paid running back in the league a year later?
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. So, Algier's not going to be back. He's probably going to go get starting money somewhere, and now the Falcons aren't going to get anything because they're not going to be in line for comp picks. And I think this was what a lot of people don't understand is that you only get comp picks if you lose more free agents than you gain. And the Falcons are going to be spending money next year because they'll be out of the Kirk Cousins contract. Despite all the nonsense with the Kirk Cousins contract, they can still save $35 million by moving on from Kirk Cousins and making him a post-June 1st cut. They're going to have cap. They could save another 12 by making Darnell Mooney as post-June 1st cut if he doesn't rebound. They could have $40+ million to spend after they fill out their roster. Like, they're going to be spending money. That there's no way they're not. So you're not getting any comp picks. Like you're not getting, like, it doesn't matter if these guys sign. If you offset them with 3 other signings, it doesn't matter how small. You're going to lose all the comp picks. So like there's no point in holding people hoping to get comp picks. The one guy that I didn't think they would trade is Kyle Pitts, because Pitts is an intriguing like tag and trade candidate because the tight end tag is not very expensive. And I do think there's an argument to possibly extending Pitts because, again, tight ends don't get paid as much as other players. Like, it is a value type of position where you might be able to get Pitts for a decent contract, but also the tag is not prohibitively expensive to trade him away. So, I do think if they're going to get picks for this draft, the best option to do that is tag and trade of Kyle Pitts. But we'll see how he finishes the season, but I think it's in everyone's best interest that they pump up Pitts as much as possible, get him as many targets and catches as possible to increase his value, to possibly do a tag and trade for a day 2 pick, because he's still just 24 years old. Like he's the same age as plenty of rookies. So, I think he's really interesting. As like, he's the one piece that I think it makes sense to hold on to because you're not trying to gamble with the comp picks. You're trying to potentially tag and trade. So we'll see how that goes. But, and Corey, Pitts might want to be paid like a wide receiver, but he hasn't performed like a wide receiver. So no one's paying him like a wide receiver. I mean, he's got a tight end in front of his name. So, I mean, yeah.
He's not winning that. His agent is probably going to make the argument to the NFL through the Players Association. There's already plenty of precedent set. The first precedent that was ever set was Jimmy Graham with the New Orleans Saints over 10 years ago, I remember. Because Jimmy Graham used to line up at wide receiver. I think it was like 65, 70% of the time, something, way more than tight end. And the NFL ended up ruling that, no, you're a tight end. You're getting tagged as a tight end and you're in the tight end market. Like, you're not going to be a wide receiver just because, you play out wide a bit more. So that's going to be a losing battle for Kyle Pitts.
Yeah. That one is not likely to work out for him. So, it's just disappointing. I wasn't wanting them to trade for anyone because, again, I think you and I are on the same page about this, Adnan, that the season's over. Like, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry if there was anyone in here that still had hope. And again, if they turn it around and make the playoffs, you guys get to pick the jersey that I'm buying. It could be JD Bertrand. It could be Felipe Franks. We can do whatever we want. We can get crazy with it because we'll be celebrating in the streets if they somehow miraculously turn this thing around and go 7-2 and make the playoffs. So, but I don't think we have to worry about that. So, as fun as that would be, and I'm totally serious about it, by the way, like I would be happy to buy this jersey. So, it's just not going to happen. So I think you and I are on the page of like, we need to start focusing on 2026 where they're already down draft capital. So, and like trading Algier and Ebiketie and Kirk Cousins wouldn't have crippled the roster either. Like, this is not going to prevent them from winning games. Like, Ebiketie would be the loss you probably feel the most because I think he is a core part of the rotation, but he's like your third edge rusher right now. So, like, I mean, it's not going to cause this team to fall off a cliff or anything. And Algier is like your reserve running back. I think at this point it might make sense to start giving Nathan Carter some runs so if he could maybe be a change of pace guy for you with Bijan long term, which I do think Nathan Carter is interesting. But
look, man, like I said, Algier's good. Algier's fine. It's nice having Algier on the team. I think if you can get 80% of that backup running back production out of a 5th round pick, which Algier was originally, that Algier gives you, I feel like you're more than fine when it comes to the running back. Like, Bijan Robinson is going to do the heavy lifting when it comes to that position and when it comes to this offense. There's just so many good running backs that just wind up falling to day 3, and there's just so many good running backs that you can like get to the point where it's like you're going to pay Bijan because he's like a very, very special talent that there's not very many of those. But when it comes to the running back position, when it comes to the backup, you can easily figure it out with a UDFA or like a 5th or 6th round pick after Algier ends up being gone.
Yeah. And like, that's the thing. Like, I think day 3 running back, like Algier is a perfect example. Like, day 3 running back is typically one of the most plus value positions you can add. You routinely find good running backs on day 3. It's not something you have to draft high. I think the Falcons went about this the right way, where it's like, if you're going to draft a running back high, you might as well go for like Hall of Fame caliber guy in Bijan Robinson. And I still think that's obviously the right pick, because Bijan Robinson's awesome. It's really, really taken all of Zach Robinson's might to make Bijan look pedestrian the last few weeks. So shout out to Zach Robinson for finding a way to do that. But yeah, the Falcons don't exactly need high-end running backs behind Bijan. They just need, I think they need another like Algier-esque, kind of bruising type guy. And I think Nate Carter can be your change of pace back. I think he's shown some flashes. I'd like to see him get some carries from time to time, but unfortunately this team doesn't believe in running the football anymore, apparently. So, we'll see if that happens this year, but it's just kind of disappointing. And I just wish that we had better news for you guys, better things to talk about than the Falcons not doing anything at the trade deadline, and then also having to tell you about all the offensive line injuries that are just starting to pile up. Because guess what? Storm Norton probably not going to return, is what it sounds like, because his practice window was open, and he's now suffered another setback to his foot now. And if he's not activated in the next week, I think he is on permanent IR. So seems like his season's probably going to be over. So they don't have a swing tackle anymore. That means Elijah Wilkinson's your tackle. Matthew Bergeron's week to week. So who knows what that means? He could go on IR too. And Chris Lindstrom, thankfully, is day to day and seems like he's trending towards playing. So we'll see. But kind of a nightmare scenario, Adnan. So it's kind of like, even if you were like trying to save your job at this point, it's like, is it really Like, are you think this is really going to happen now? Like, the offensive line has kind of fallen to pieces at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, throw your hands up. You're 3-5. I won't lie. I'd be a lot more worried, and I'd be a lot more like panicky about these offensive line injuries if we were 5-3 and actually looking like we were going to do something this year. And it's like, damn, you don't want that to pull the rug from under your season, but the coaching staff has done a fine enough job of pulling the rug from under your season either way. So, it just sort of is what it is. Let's just go out there and, try to have some fun the next few weeks. And, let's see what Kyle Hinton can do. And if he can if he can prove himself as a long-term swing guard. Like, I feel like we're in like roster evaluation mode to where it's like, okay, like, what can Kyle Hinton do? Elijah Wilkinson, I guess, like, can he be like a candidate for this roster for next year, possibly? The offensive line it's in shambles. It's not good for the run game because the big plus that the Falcons have over many teams is their guard duo in Bergeron and Chris Lindstrom. And yeah, week to week is not a good thing. Like, week to week he's definitely going to be out this week, probably out next week, potentially the week after that. And then, like you said, maybe IR is going to be in play. But, yeah, I mean, it's just, this is the point in the season where I could normally be like, well, let's fire up Tankathon and let's see how high of a first-round pick we can get. But we don't even have that this year. So it's a special kind of season for the Falcons this year.
Yeah. It's just a bad situation, and I know we had someone ask, how is it going based on our season predictions? So Adnan and I actually had the same exact predictions to this point. So after week 9, Adnan and I both had the Falcons at 4-4. So they're actually only one game behind.
Oh, really?
Yes. This was our like official one. I know you sort of ratcheted yours down like closer to the season after the McGarry injury, but
we're fine. We're fine with the official one. Yeah.
Yeah. The official one was we both had them 4-4 after week 9. So we both had them starting 2-4, which would have been worse than they actually started. And then winning against the Dolphins and Patriots to go to 4-4. And then both of us had them winning the next 4 games as well. Against Colts, Panthers, Saints, Jets. So, yeah. So if they can pull off that 4-game win streak, then maybe we can talk about them having a chance. But they still got to play the Colts this week. They still got to play the Seahawks. They still got to play the Bucs, and they still got to play the Rams, and they can't lose more than 2 of those games. They also play the Cardinals, who are not a bad team. So, yeah, the Saints are hot garbage, and the Jets are awful. But we've seen how the team performs against bad teams. They look the worst that they look against anyone against bad teams. So those aren't even safe wins. So the Falcons had just taken care of business because we both had them losing to the Vikings, to the Commanders, and to the Bills. They won all those games, and the Falcons screwed it up by losing to the Panthers and the Dolphins. So, there's just nothing else to really say about that. There's, if they can't beat the easy teams, it doesn't matter if you beat the good teams. You got to get the layups on your schedule, and they just can't do it, Adnan. And that's going to be what costs them this season.
Yeah, well, but I mean, yeah, that's poor coaching too. Like, you can't get up for the teams that you like. That's the biggest indictment of coaching to me, where if you can't beat the teams you're supposed to beat, it's like, what's the point of all of this, especially given how the Falcons have looked in those weeks that they've lost. Like, they look completely unprepared against the Panthers. They look completely unprepared against the Dolphins. They looked unprepared against the 49ers, who, in shooting themselves in the foot. Like, imagine if they won those 3 games. Imagine if this team could have been sitting at 6-2 right now. And I know it's the NFL. It's woulda, coulda, shoulda. But yeah, I mean, it's I feel like that's the biggest issue with this coaching staff right now. Had they, I know it was radical when I was calling for them to move on from Raheem Morris and to move on from this regime over this past off season, or after last season ended. But I mean, had they had just a semi-competent coaching staff, like, this team could have easily been at 5-3 or 6-2 right now, and that's the most frustrating part of all of this.
Yeah, they had so many opportunities to be ahead of schedule right now because they did win some tough games. They won 3 games we weren't expecting them to win. That's awesome. And then they just shit the bed. They pissed down their leg in the other games, and it's such a shame. And then this is the most frustrating thing. We talked about it last week too. Like, this team is clearly talented enough to compete with anybody. They can take down the Bills. They can take down the Vikings. They can take down the Commanders, maybe not as good as people thought, but they've just continued to suffer injury after injury since the Falcons played them. But they took the Bucs to the wire. They took they were really competitive against the 49ers till the end of that game. They clearly could have beaten the Patriots if not for just more inexplicable mistakes. And like, this team is clearly capable of beating anybody. But they have to push the boulder uphill every week. They have to try to overcome this giant mountain, which is the coaching of Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson. And even Jeff Ulbrich isn't beyond reproach anymore, considering his love affair with J.D. Bertrand. And I don't mean like sexual love affair. I mean like he's obsessed with playing him on the football field. I'm not intimating anything weird here. So like, it's just... That just pissed me off so much because Trayshawn and I were talking about it on the film review yesterday. It's like, they played J.D. Bertrand the first snap of the game to give him the start on the stat sheet, which seems, that to me, like, already has my antenna going up. Like, why are we doing this? Because they pulled him after the first snap to put Ronnie Harrison in. Okay? Ronnie Harrison was drastically better. Like, much better. And Ronnie Harrison wasn't perfect. But when he failed at full speed. And that's what I asked. That's all I asked from my reserve linebacker. If you're going to screw up, at least run towards somebody and not just stand there in the middle of the defense like an idiot. So, like, there is that. And then Ronnie Harrison plays the entire game until the final drive. They pull Ronnie Harrison for J.D. Bertrand on the final drive. And J.D. Bertrand gets absolutely owned on the critical 3rd down pass, where he doesn't even react to his man in man coverage and ends up running into and like trying to get around the pick because he sits there for the first 3 steps of the tight end's route before reacting to the coverage and is just, by then it's already over. Obviously, we know what happened. Nobody touched the tight end until he was past the 1st down because J.D. Bertrand couldn't even make an attempt to cover him. So, Even
Are you insinuating?
what's that? Sorry.
Are you insinuating that there's some FanDuel parlays
Presented
happening?
by FanDuel, yeah. No. I don't think it's that. I think it's they are obsessed with JD Bertrand. Like, I don't know if it's Jeff Ulbrich, I don't know if it's Raheem Morris, I don't know who's obsessed with him, but like to pull him for the entire game because he deserves to be benched because he's been awful, right? Like, and like I try to give guys the benefit of the doubt, especially young players. I know it's his second season, whatever. We've seen 2 games of JD Bertrand being the worst linebacker in the NFL. So it's not like he hasn't had any chance. He's had 2 games to show anything, and he just looks completely unprepared. So you can't play him. But to like start him for a snap, which like I don't know who care like who did this? Like, why was this the plan? Like, we need to give him the start and then just take him off the field. Like, why was that a consideration, first of all? Second, why is he back in the game late? Like, you didn't trust him enough to play the entire game, but you put him back in for a critical third down in coverage where you know he can't be trusted. Like, what is going on here, Adnan? Do you have any explanation other than FanDuel? Because that right now that's more likely than anything else. But yeah,
Hey man, the FanDuel explanation is it's a pretty good one, but no, I don't like genuinely. It's inexplicable. The fact that the coaches also have the film. Maybe the coaches just aren't watching film. That's my other explanation. Maybe they just don't know that JD Bertrand isn't good, and maybe they're just who knows. Maybe they phoned it in and they're like, you know what? Who needs to watch film? I can I can do anything
they
else.
just need to execute better. I don't need to watch film to say that. So.
Yeah, look at these beautiful fall days. I can go out for a walk. These guys have some money. I know Jeff Ulbrich has $100,000 less because of his son this past offseason. He still has a really nice contract. Now I'm sure he has a very nice house that he can enjoy, and the weather's been too nice in Atlanta to sit inside and to be watching film the past couple months. So we'll excuse the coaching staff on that. So that's my explanation.
Yeah, that's the best. That's the best I can come up with. But like, it's just I just can't understand it. It's like you didn't trust him enough to play the game, and then you put him back in, and like clearly, like I was like, oh well, maybe Harrison tweaked something. They had to pull him. Let's see if he's on the injury report. No, it's not that. Like I'll double check. I didn't see anything about him being on the injury report, but it's just like what are we doing here? Like, why is he back? Yeah, no. If anything, JD Bertrand's on the injury report, so it's definitely not that. He's on there as a limited participant.
Hey man,
bruised ego, yeah.
FanDuel.
Shout out to FanDuel. Yeah. Presented by. But yeah, man. It's brutal out there. So it's like we can't even hang our hat on Ulbrich, who really, I think that was the one coach that we were like, at least Ulbrich is like putting forth competent effort, and like I still think he's doing the best of everybody here, but this Bertrand thing is really, yeah, it's a very low bar. I do think Ulbrich has actually been coaching very well, except for JD Bertrand. Like JD Bertrand is like dragging him down like a pair of lead galoshes in the when they drop you off the bridge and say you're swimming with the fishes, Italian style. So you got to get those lead galoshes off, Ulbrich, because you're the only one we can depend on at this point. So need you to get in there and fix that up. But I mean, at least they didn't play Bertrand the whole game, and the defense was much better as a result. I mean, Harrison was not like amazing or anything, but he was at least making some plays. I mean, yeah. Whew. But yeah, let me get to, I know we had a couple donations here. Let me get to this. We got Machine Learning Brilliance with the $2 saying, not selling. Does that mean coaches are on job save mode? Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, they are absolutely in full on, we got to save our jobs mode. I think they're very much aware that they're very likely to be fired without at least a winning record. So 10 wins is what they probably have to do to make the playoffs. I think blank would accept a winning record. So 9 wins is what they're needing. So if they need to get to 9 wins, they can go 6-3, which is like a bit more possible, right?
Worst case scenario.
Yeah. So
That's
like
the worst case scenario. I would rather go winless and make the wholesale changes that are needed than to win 6 games and then trick ourselves into everything's fine next year, which is exactly what happened in 2019. They won 4 straight games to end the season, and Arthur Blank talked himself into another year of Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitrov. 2020 comes, what happens? They start 0-5, a complete wasted season, and because of what they did over that offseason as lame ducks, it ended up costing the Falcons another 2 off seasons of cap hell. So basically, that decision from Arthur Blank, again, all goes back to Arthur Blank. That decision ended up costing them 3 full years. I'm very afraid that something similar could happen this year. I would rather just rip that Band-Aid off, make the changes, and let's start fresh next year versus, oh, okay, 9 wins. And we have Raheem Morris gaslighting the fan base next year, talking about what a successful season it was this year.
Yeah. That is scary. I don't think we have to worry about that too much. If they win this weekend, I think that scary scenario is more likely because then they just have to go 5-3 the rest of the way to get a winning record, which, like, given this schedule, is not impossible at all. But I think when it gets to needing 7 wins is when it gets to be more impossible. But I don't. Like, I want them to win as many games as possible, because I just want the team to play well and do well. And ultimately, I think, like, the best case is probably for this team to look good, but, like, fall short so that we can clear out the staff and get a new staff in here. But, like, I think the best case scenario for the Falcons is they can sell this as a quick turnaround situation where, like, we've got a quarterback that you can believe in. We've got a roster, especially in offense, and a defense that's better than expected, and an offense that we just need a competent scheme in here, and we can win. So that, I think, is the pathway to attracting, like, a top offensive coach or, like, at least a passable offensive coach. The Browns might be stupid enough to fire Kevin Stefanski. I would be all over that. Clint Kubiak from the Seahawks would be another guy. But, yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. But at this stage, it's just, it would be scary if they start, like, winning on we start getting close, like, to that winning record. It's like it's gonna be a little bit of, oh no, I don't know what I don't know what I want. I'm feeling very conflicted, because I always want the team to win, especially when you're not, like, trying to get a first round pick. Now, keep in mind, it does still affect their other picks, guys. So, like, if they end up with, like, a top 10 pick, that means they would be picking in, like, the early 30s in the second round instead of, like, later. So that still helps. Obviously, it doesn't help as much as a first round pick would, but it does still do something for you. So I think some people are like, oh, it doesn't matter what happens. Like, it does matter a little bit still. I mean, the difference between pick 33 and pick 50 is, like, basically the equivalent of, like, a third round pick in value. So I mean, it does matter a little bit. There is something there, but if they to get into, like, the top 10, they would have to really stink it up, which I don't think they'll do that. I still think, like, 7 wins is probably the floor for this team. But I mean, the schedule is just, it's not hard. Like, they're gonna, like, start winning games at some point. Like, we just saw them, like, almost beat the Patriots. Like, this team is gonna beat these like, some of these teams at the very least. Allegedly, yeah.
Because, I mean, look, man, we were. I feel like we have that Panthers game as sort of a lock of, of course, they'll beat the Panthers. But, I mean, yeah, right now the Panthers are looking kind of good. I hate to say it. And it's not because of their quarterback, as you said. It's because Rico Dowdle just, turned into freaking Emmitt Smith for over the past month. And I think right now he's, third in the league in rushing yards, despite the fact that he hasn't started a game until 3 weeks ago, which is literally nuts. And I mean, yeah, Rico Dowdle is having a resurgence right now. that defense is figuring it out, and much credit to them. They just beat the Packers in Lambeau Field. The Packers were the 1 seed in the NFC, so I feel like that's one of those games where you're in great danger of getting swept by the Panthers. Like, that Panthers team feels like they own you right now. And honestly, right now they probably do a little bit, because they beat you in the season finale last year. They kicked your ass all up and down the field in week 3 this year. And yeah, that team's going to be brimming with confidence. And I want to say that this Falcons team is going to get up and get their lick back, but I mean, I thought that's what was going to happen in week 3, but they looked like they just didn't give a shit. And who knows if they look like they're going to give a shit again during that game in Atlanta. Because right now, I'm pretty sure the Panthers really want that game more than the Falcons do, especially given their own playoff implications. Panthers also haven't made the playoffs in the past 7 seasons. They're tied with the Falcons on that route, and that game against the Falcons could be huge for them when it comes to the NFC playoff picture.
Yeah, especially with them beating the Packers. They got that tiebreaker now, so they're also trying to really finish strong, see if they can get to 10 wins, which is still going to be hard for them. That's not going to be an easy task still, but it's much more easy for them. I think they have to go 5-3 or something like that the rest of the way. So, that's a lot easier than having to go 7-2 like the Falcons. So, it is what it is. But yeah. So we got Alex Foster with the $5 saying, guys, we collapse every year. We're just getting it out of the way early. 4D chess, duh. Yeah, maybe we could collapse earlier, and then just, we can be totally out of it by, late November instead of like the usual first couple weeks of December. They fooled us type of situation. So let's see. We got Love Dogs Avery with 5. Thanks, Avery. Says, the Braves have turned into the Falcons and are hiring all their friends. I can't really comment on that. What do you think about the Braves situation, Adnan?
Look, I feel like it's the most Braves move I've ever seen in my life, hiring Walt Weiss, who was the team's bench coach. Like, this team does not look outside the organization. Like, they always hire from within, going back to Bobby Cox. It was Cox, Freddie Gonzalez was the third base coach. Then Brian Snitker has been a Braves lifer, and now Walt Weiss, who's been, in Atlanta forever. So it's like, I know the thing is, like, a lot of people aren't happy about the move. There's been a lot of, Braves fans that are completely against it, saying that it's the same old, and it is. But honestly, like, that's one where when I saw the news, I was like, okay, it's just the Braves thing to do.
Yeah. Well, I'll lean on Adnan's expertise with the Braves there. I suggest you all do too. We got Furball with the $5 saying, so I'm curious, how did JD Bertrand mess up that bad on the play? Can you explain how it went so bad for him? What did the tight end do to cook him and embarrass him? Yes, it's actually quite simple. So in this play, the Falcons are playing man coverage, and JD Bertrand has the tight end, the tight end, and I think it's one of the safeties has the slot receiver, or maybe it's Alfred. I can't remember who exactly was in there next to Bertrand, but Bertrand has the tight end who's lined up in line to start the play. Now, this is a pick route that Matt Collins doesn't sell super well, right? So, it could have been called, but they don't usually call it. And it didn't actually impact Bertrand, because what Bertrand should be doing in man coverage is, like most people would expect, you follow your man. Now, he's obviously looking to see if there's a run. You should wait a split second to see if you have to fill for the run before you follow your tight end in man coverage. But as soon as he sees the tight end release into the route, which is like the tight end immediately off the snap releases into his leak route, which tight end leak is an awesome play. The Falcons never run it. It still pisses me off every day. The Falcons they run 2 tight end sets and never run tight end leak. It's one of the most infuriating things I can ever imagine, because it's such an easy money play when you're a good running team, which maybe the Falcons aren't even a good running team anymore. I don't know. But so basically the tight end is able to take 3 steps releasing towards the sideline before Bertrand reacts to the tight end. He just stands there. Like, go to Trayshawn Diaz's Twitter feed. You can see he has a replay of it. He just stands there for 3 steps of the tight end's route. And then you can see him panic which causes him to try to recover and actually trip to try to get out to cover the tight end, which of course he has no chance to do at this point because he's 3 steps behind the tight end. And he ends up like tripping on the way to even get over to the flat. And the tight end catches the ball uncontested. The safety, I believe, is taken out by the pick route, so the safety can't get over there. And Bertrand doesn't even get close to the tight end before the tight end catches the ball and gets past the first down before he's even touched by the defense. So it's really just as the middle linebacker, you have to pick something to do every play. You can't stand there ever unless you're literally just covering the middle of the field zone or spying the quarterback. You have to react. And when you have man coverage on a tight end and that tight end's already lined up in line and you're at the middle linebacker position, you have to be super sensitive to picking up that tight end. So the second that tight end released, Bertrand needed to start running, and he did not. And it's like, again, you could argue for like the first step because he's checking to make sure that there's no, like, the running back isn't coming through that gap. But after that second, so you could say that the tight end's always going to have like a 1-step advantage probably because the tight end knows the play. Bertrand doesn't. That's fine. 2 more steps, too far. Like that is, you can never have that ever. So that's what he did wrong. You can't just sit there doing nothing. And again, he's not athletic enough to make up for it either. Like that's his thing. He's not athletic. He's undersized and he has no instincts. So I don't know what he does. Like, I don't know what he does at this point. Like, Ronnie Harrison's even smaller than him, and at least Ronnie Harrison can cover and has some kind of instincts. So it's just really infuriating play to watch. There's no way around that. But Avery asks the $2, who's better, J.D. Bertrand or Daniel Sorensen? I will say, like, Sorensen didn't finish his career very well, but Sorensen had, like, several years as a good player. So definitely Sorensen. Like, Sorensen was a elite special teams guy for a while. I think had a good year as like a reserve safety. And then I think he had to be relied on too much as a starter at a certain point. But overall, Sorensen definitely has had the better career. He actually had quite a long NFL career, I think. So, but yeah, I didn't want to relive that J.D. Bertrand play again, but I will always do the breakdown. So thank you for the donation. But yeah, it's a very, very frustrating play to watch. That's the one thing I can't stand. It's one thing if you make the wrong call, right? You make the wrong read. Like if Bertrand had charged the tight end and it was a run and he'd left the gap open, it's like, yeah, okay. But like you have to choose, like, as the middle linebacker, you at a certain point you have to commit to covering or charging the gap. You can't just stand there. Like, so if he had charged the A gap or whatever gap he had, or like followed the tight end, that would have been okay. Even if it was the wrong decision, at least he was doing something. But standing in the middle of the field for 3 steps, like I think it was like over a second and a half, he's just standing there. It's inexcusable from your middle linebacker. You have to have a guy that's at least going to do something for you on a given play. So frustrating play, Adnan. I'm still mad about it. I'm clearly over it, actually. You can tell. So
I can tell, yeah. Yeah, I mean, hey, on the bright side, it wasn't a play that had much consequence to the team in that game.
Yeah, very minor play, not critical at all, not a meaningful down or distance or anything like that. So certainly not. All right, we got George Costanza with a couple here. George says, just wanted to pop in and say that I'm tapping out until blank fires this coaching staff. I think TF can stay. Honestly, he's been fine outside of the Kirk contract. Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson could take a 2-star Uber ride to the airport. I love these donations, George. I can't read all of this, but I'm so done with this pistol crap. Chip Kelly would get more out of this offense. We fired Arthur Smith because he couldn't get the quarterback situated. Raheem Morris can't win even with quarterback solved. Yeah, I mean, no argument there. Like, I think Arthur Smith always had the excuse of, like, well, he never had a quarterback. And, like, part of that absolutely had to do with, like, Arthur Smith's decision-making around the quarterback position. But, like, I think Penix is, like, legitimately, like, a fine NFL quarterback. Like, I really don't think he's holding back this offense. I don't think he's playing at, like, an elite level or anything, but I think it would be hard for anyone to look elite in this offense. Like, let's be honest. Like, who's coming into this scheme and looking great? Like, is Jaden Daniels looking good? Maybe Jaden Daniels in the pistol actually would make sense You know, like, because he could actually take advantage of all the zone read opportunities the formation typically gives you. But like maybe Drake May, because he can run a little bit more, would look better. But I still don't think anyone's looking great in this offense. So, I mean, it's just a bad offense. It's just a bad scheme. Don't really know what else to say about it. All right, we got Alex Foster with the 5. Thank you, Alex. Says, watch them win the next 9 games. Not to make us happy, just to screw with us for giving up early. I'll accept that, and I will happily wear that JD Bertrand or whatever you guys decide. We can figure that out.
I mean, 9 games would be the team's 3-5 right now.
12 wins. Yeah. That would be crazy. Like, if they win 9 games, I'll have whatever conversation you want. We can give Raheem Morris an extension. If they win the next 9 straight games, we can do some crazy things. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
the show would be a lot more jovial.
We'd be off the charts with hype at that point. So, yeah, I mean, if they could turn it around to that degree, absolutely, I'm in on that. But I think it's much more likely that I don't have anything for this, but something very unlikely happening is much more likely than Falcons winning 9 straight games at this point in the season. Although crazy things have happened in the NFL. We got Ferbs with the 2. I think there wasn't a message. Oh, okay, I see there was another message that got sent. Okay, sorry, Ferbs. Yeah. If it doesn't work for you, like the message doesn't go through, just put it in the chat and I'll read it for you. You don't have to donate again. I appreciate you donating again. That's very nice. But if anybody has a super chat like mess up and the message doesn't send, just put it in the chat and I'll get it. But yes, what Ferbs wanted to ask with the $5, thank you, Ferbs, says, figuring out the super chat thing, but am I crazy for thinking Penix's ability to avoid sacks and turnovers is a pretty underrated part of his game? That's not crazy at all. Actually, I think I was reading a stat that Penix's pressure to sack ratio is actually number 1 in the NFL right now, where he actually takes the fewest sacks of any quarterback in like a sack to pressure or a pressure to sack ratio, like, which is really impressive because we all know he's not like an incredible scrambler or anything, but he just as good at avoiding sacks. Yeah, obviously, George, that intentional grounding was not the best way to avoid a sack. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, I think he is actually good at avoiding sacks. And again, I don't think he's a turnover-prone quarterback either. I think this offense doesn't always give him a lot of good options, so that makes him much more likely to test throws that maybe he shouldn't be testing. But yeah, what do you think on that? Yeah.
I will say about the turnover stuff. One of the main things, and it's become a criticism of his that I actually think it's more so from the coaching scheme, is we don't see many throws across the middle of the field from Penix this year. And I saw someone on Twitter talking about, oh, well, they're lining Drake London up and like always having him down like near the hash marks on all of these throws. And I get the criticism, and I know that people are very, very quick to criticize the coaching staff, but when Michael Penix misses, he overthrows. He doesn't underthrow. Like, he has an arm, and I do think that is sort of being schemed into the equation, baked into the equation of, all right, if he's going to overthrow, let's make sure that he overthrows the ball down the sideline where nobody can get it. Versus if he has these overthrows across the middle, then the safety's lurking. There's interceptions. There's potential for runbacks, and I do think that the lack of turnover-worthy plays is more so a scheme thing where they're sort of intentionally keeping him away from the middle of the field and more so toward the boundaries. Now, it is something where if Penix wants to take the next step, he has to figure it out like over the middle of the field as well. And it's going to have to be something where he needs to get that arm under control a little bit when it does come to those overthrows, because yeah, the quickest way to disaster in the NFL is to overthrow across the middle of the field.
Yeah. And I personally think that the scheme has a lot to do with it. I know people are like, oh, he's just always going to his first read. I think a lot of that has to do with the Falcons don't run intermediate stuff. Like, and what I mean by that is there's a lot of short routes and there's a lot of deep routes, but there's really like that like 10 to 20 like radius. They just don't fill the play sheet with those routes. And those routes I think are excellent Penix routes because of his ability to rifle the ball into tight windows. That should be his bread and butter. Like, yes, he can throw deep, but like you can't build a passing attack out of just deep balls because they're a low percentage play. That's not a consistent way to get up and down the field. So right now it's like they're either like throwing like slants, like quick outs, dump offs to Bijan, tight end screens apparently is a big part of the playbook, or they're just launching it deep. And it's like, we need to be getting the ball, like Adnan said, to the middle of the field. What happened to the dig routes? That's Drake London's like moneymaker. What happened to the Drake London digs? Where are the digs? Like, why are we running any of these? Like, why can't we? Can we see some mesh for God's sake? Like anything in the intermediate area? They're just not really running it, and it's a Zach Robinson thing. I really don't think it's that Penix can't throw to the middle of the field or won't throw to the middle of the field or anything. I think part of it is that they're not really giving him good intermediate options. Part of it is that Mooney is still like working his way back, so they really need Mooney to step up as soon as he can. The other part is that the wide receiver 3 is a ghost. Like, they got rid of Ray McLeod. It's like, okay, fine. You don't want Ray McLeod for whatever reason. He's like the only dynamic receiver you have other than, Darnell Mooney. But okay, just kick him out. Like, eat the money. Eat the $3 million and just get him off your roster for some reason. Probably because he said something he shouldn't. I don't know. But then you just bring in David Sills, who is a Drake London backup and a possession guy who can't get open and seems to routinely run the wrong route when you ask him to play. And he can't separate. So there really isn't a lot of options. It's like Kyle Pitts and Drake London and Bijan Robinson out of the backfield are like the only legitimate options you have. They're getting very little from Darnell Mooney, and the other receiver that's out there is doing nothing. And they just refuse to throw to Charlie Werner. Like, they won't even use him as a receiver. Like, not even as like a dump off. Or he has one target this whole season? Like, the offense is designed by a toddler. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's like, if you're going to run 2 tight ends and you just refuse to ever throw to one of them. Like, I'm not saying Charlie Werner should have 5 targets in a game, but he should be getting a target or 2 here and there to keep defenses honest. But nobody even has to bother covering Charlie Werner when he does release because they never throw him the ball. They never, like, David Sills isn't a threat. Like, I mean, so the scheme is poorly designed and they don't have the bodies. Like, they're insistent on running like a bunch of possession receivers out there that can't separate. So it's frustrating. But I think Zach Robinson is the reason that we're seeing all these issues in the middle of the field and so on and so forth. Because like, I don't think it's a Penix thing. Penix can clearly rip it. We watched him rip it for 3 games last year. It's a Zach Robinson cowardice thing, or I don't know exactly what it is, but they just don't. Maybe it's FanDuel. FanDuel's going to be excited. That FanDuel's been mentioned more in this show than any other. They're going to be hyped about this one. But yeah, it's frustrating. But we got one more from George here. George says, at least we can take solace in the fact that the Hawks are probably not going to get our hopes up this year either. So we have to hope for GT or UGA to save us from austerity. Spurs got Wemby and we got Risa Shea. Sigh. And yeah, Adnan, you want to weigh in with the Hawks takes?
Way too early, George. I'm highly optimistic. That game last night was fire. I'm very optimistic in the Hawks.
Trey's hurt too, right? So
Trey's hurt. He'll be back in like mid-December, so he's not out for like forever. But yeah, I feel like we'll figure it out in Hawks Nation. I'm excited. I'm still excited about the season, and also, don't forget, George, we get the Pelicans pick. So the Pelicans may be the worst team in the league right now.
Get another number 1 pick. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it's like it's the equivalent to the Rams having our pick, except the Pelicans are much worse.
Yeah.
It would be like the Rams having our pick, except we're the Dolphins.
Or the Saints. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're the Saints.
The Pelicans are the Saints, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect comparison. Perfect comparison. Both in the world.
Yep.
So yeah, it's very exciting. No matter what happens, we get that pick, and hopefully the draft lottery will be kind to us, because this is this year there's 3 very big blue chip prospects at the top of the draft. So it's we have a bright future ahead of us, George.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to all that. Hopefully, positive Hawks talk in the future. And like, if they can stay afloat without Trey, then you have to feel really good about what they're
Yeah.
capable of. So maybe it'll ultimately be like a good thing for the team that they can sort of like overcome this adversity early and then be even better over the long haul. So we got Corey with a couple here. First one with the $2 says, if Pierce was in the 2026 draft, where would you rank him? Oh, forcing me to have draft takes. Well, I mean, I'd have Arvell Reese above James Pierce, but I honestly haven't paid too much attention to the draft class yet. I usually try to wait a little bit. So yeah, I don't know. I know he wouldn't be edge one because Arvell Reese is probably like player one, but I can't really answer that, Corey, unfortunately. I will definitely give you my opinion when I have it, but at this stage, not ready to vote on that. But I still think Pierce is likely to be like a top 15-ish player even in this class. I mean, we'll see how he performs this year, but Pierce is. I think Pierce is. I'm not really upset at that trade. Like you got Pierce and you got Xavier Watts out of it. Xavier Watts has been great. I think Pierce has flashed. Like, I'm not upset about that. I'm upset about the Falcons squandering this, strong roster more than a trade. So, we'll see. And then last one from Corey here with $2 said, can you talk about our cap space next year considering the Drake contract situation we will need to address? Yeah, like I said, they don't have much cap now. I'm guessing they're going to hold on to as much of what they currently have to roll over. So my guess is that they will try to, they will probably be able to cover, their sort of like futures contracts with like the cap rollover and like the $5 million they have sort of sitting there next year. And then my guess is they will be able to post June 1st cut, Kirk. And at this point, I'd also post June 1st Darnell Mooney. And from those two moves, you can get like 40 plus million in cap. So they'll have cap next year. And like with the Drake contract, it's a big extension. They could reduce his cap hit if they want to. So, I mean, they could make even more money by extending Drake next year. So, they have basically next year, they're much more flexible than they were this year. That's for sure.
Yeah, Onyemata is also coming off the books. So you have a void year in Onyemata's contract, which is going to be a $2.4 million dead cap hit. But Onyemata was over $16 million in cap hit this year. So that saves you like 14 mil, more or less. But yeah, I feel like they're going to completely backload Drake London's contract and just sort of count on the NFL salary cap continuing to go up like every team does. But yeah, they'll be fine like when it comes to the cap.
Yeah, they're going to be okay in cap space next year. It's more about managing the draft, I think, is the bigger concern here. So we'll see. But yeah, before we sign off, real quick check in on this Berlin Colts game, Adnan, as the Falcons are 6.5 point underdogs per FanDuel going into this Colts game. That seems pretty fair to me.
Yeah.
But the Falcons do seem to just play up to, so if the Colts are the best team in the NFL, as some people think, maybe the Falcons will play their best game this week.
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, shout out to all the Falcons fans making the trip to Germany, and shout out to all the European Falcons fans. And I know we have the Falcons fan Germany guy who's over there, probably going to be at the game. So yeah, definitely really cool opportunity, really exciting for people to see Germany and to see Berlin. Historic city, very, very beautiful country. I was just there this past summer. So if nothing else, it is a very cool sort of like bucket list type trip for a lot of Falcons fans. Now, as for the game itself, try to have as much fun as you can in the country before the game, because maybe the game won't be too much fun. Because yeah, Jonathan Taylor was bottled up against the Steelers last week, but he's still been on a ravaging pace this season, and he's still in that MVP consideration and conversation at the moment. And yeah, the Colts, I mean, they just traded for Sauce Gardner. They're going for it. Like, that team has looked so good up until like this last week. I think they had the most like points per possession like this century, like more than the 2007 Patriots. So that Shane Steichen has that team humming right now, and yeah, they're gonna really be locked in and looking to rebound after that Steelers loss. So yeah, this is a much tougher game now than what we anticipated over the summer.
Yeah, yeah. It's gonna be a tough game. There's no doubt about that. And the Colts just sent 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner, who, like, I mean, I guess the only thing might be that he's not like fully incorporated into the defense, so he's probably just gonna be playing a lot of man at this point. Which, I mean, that's maybe what they were gonna do anyway. But, I don't think the Falcons are looking great in this matchup. But I mean, I didn't think they looked great at all in this Patriots matchup. So. We'll see. The Falcons have played up to their competition and down to their competition this year. So if that holds, they'll probably give the Colts a hell of a game. But, if it holds like the Patriots, they'll still find a way to lose it. But yeah, at this point, it's going to be a tough game. I think 6.5 points is pretty fair in terms of the spread. And the Falcons want to have a shot. Like, they probably have to find a way to win this game. If they want to have a shot, but I just don't really see it. If they win this game, then they only need 6 wins the rest of the way. You could probably squint and see them, have a chance at that. I still don't think it's very likely, but if you want to even like have the conversation, you got to win this one. Because if you lose this one, you got to go 7-1, right? So that's just not going to happen. So you need to be able to lose 2 more games if you want to have a shot, and that might not even be enough. But I mean, if they get 10 wins, they're probably safe. Like Raheem Morris is probably safe, but very very unlikely in my opinion. So we'll see how that goes. But guys, thank you so much for joining us here on the Falcoholic Live presented by FanDuel. Adnan made sure to get many FanDuel plugs in tonight. So shout out to that. And if you don't mind, like and subscribe. Leave us that 5-star review in your podcast platform of choice. We'll be back with a game preview for Berlin on Friday. I'll be joined by Cody Felger, an Indianapolis Colts expert, to give you the inside scoop on how that season's going over in Indianapolis. It seems like it's going pretty well. So we'll have that for you guys. Of course, we'll have an earlier than normal post-game show following the 9:30 a.m. kickoff in Berlin. So you can join us for the Falcons Colts coverage here in week 10, and then we'll be rolling right on into week 11 after that, and probably starting to focus more on the future considering. But yes, we've got one final question from Brandon Brass here with the $5. Thank you, Brandon. Says, how do we feel about having the current regime choosing 2 fourth-round picks with their last few years track record and having no first, or choosing the 2nd through the 4th-round picks?
Yeah.
I mean, if they could draft like they did this year, then I feel okay about it. I feel like they kind of nailed it this year. So if they could keep it going in that direction, then I'd feel really good about it. But yeah, I mean, not that we'll have much say in the matter, unfortunately. But like, I feel like Fontenot finally delivered the draft here, and I don't know if that's replicable or not. But if they could draft like they did last year, then I'm all for it. But yeah.
Brandon, my answer is I hope it won't be this regime making those picks, especially if this team doesn't make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. But yeah, we'll see, guys. And I hope they can find a way to get some more picks in here at some point, but we'll see what they end up doing in the long run. But thank you guys so much for joining us. If you want to support the show, you can do so at patreon.com/Falcoholic Live, where you can join the YouTube channel memberships here. And we'll be here. We'll be here to get you through the season no matter what. So thanks again for hanging out with us. We'll see you next time on the Falcoholic Live. Until then, folks, have a great night.